Good morning, ladies. It's week 5 in the NFL. It's week 5 in the MFL, and we are back once again with the MFL Weekly Show. We still don't have a name for this show. I'm not picking on Brian anymore. Dan might, but Dan loves to pick on me and his damn name every week. But good morning, Dan. How are you today? No kids screaming in the background, I see.
I'm doing great. Just give it some time. I'm sure they'll be here or pounding on the door. Yourself?
My favorite was right during the intro last week or 2 weeks ago, where they just absolutely needed you as soon as the show was starting.
I
So
thought I
that was
could sneak
perfect.
that in there. Like, stop knocking on the door before you went live, but you're too fast.
I knew what I wanted. I knew how I wanted the show started.
Yeah.
I'm a director and I had a vision. No, I'm doing great this morning. It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday. We are looking over the fantasy league. What in the world could be better? And as always, we're going to start off with the trades, but you guys have been terribly disappointing this week, and only Horvath got the memo that we need trade content to make this show work. So we'll start with the trade I'm not involved with. Horvath and Taylor trade Najee, a 1 and a 2 to Horvath for Lamar Jackson. Dan, what are your thoughts before I jump in on mine?
Um, Great trade for Taylor. I mean, solidifies the biggest weakness that he had. Sucks for about 13 other teams. Well, 12 other teams, I think. Steve's happy with what he got, I'm sure. I get what he's doing. He was 0-3 at the time. Or was he 0-4 at the time? But
He was 0 and 3 at the time because they made the
yeah,
trade like on Sunday, but
yeah.
yeah.
So I get what he's doing, trying to make his best situation for next year, and he's set up great for next year. I think he's at 4 ones he has now for next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the person he has with his 4 ones, he doesn't just take 4 rookies and end up having to trade them all and not do anything with those 4 ones. But here's to hoping.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is he set himself up very well for next year? I'm just making sure it is 4 ones. Yes, it is 4 1s and 5 twos, 9 picks in the first 2 rounds next year. I don't think we've ever seen that.
No,
So, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Horvath is in a bad spot. We've talked about it numerous times on the show that luck has worked against him. The schedule has worked against him like terribly this season. And then even the fact that all of our trades, especially like Horvath lately, he's trading with the team he's playing next. So Taylor and Horvath actually play each other this week. So even with Lamar Jackson, Horvath's likely to go to 0 and 5. So why not make this move? Now 9 picks in the first 2 rounds. But for Taylor, I think Taylor caught on because I was one of the worst idiots when it came to you don't want elite quarterbacks. You don't draft a quarterback early. I said it for years. I sold out and got Patrick Mahomes a few years ago. And Taylor's starting to realize something you and Brian have said for years. You can be good in this league, but you don't win this league without an elite quarterback. And that's what it really comes down to. And I like I said, Taylor caught on that it's what everybody else is doing. And so he went out, he paid for his guy. I really liked Taylor's team setup before this trade because of all the draft picks he had. I love his setup after this, but he's not as great for next year. But if you win a championship this year, it doesn't matter what next year looks like. That's the goal. Especially I call them out every week. Taylor, Rob, Terry, they don't care what next year looks like if they walk away from this year with a trophy. So
I mean, I know Brian's a little upset this year, but he was pretty excited about last year.
exactly. And that's the thing is, like I said, there's no taking away. And I don't even think Brian's all that upset about this year. Brian knew what he was getting into
Yeah,
this year. It's just, again, when you win the championship as
oh,
someone who did
absolutely.
it in 2020, especially when you haven't won it in 15 years, Robin Terry, it's something crazy. And then in my pursuit to make the playoffs, it's funny. Dan's been calling me a playoff team for 3 weeks now. I've been saying I'm not a playoff team, but I figured it was time to shit or get off the pot. And me knowing that Horvath was looking to tank this year, I didn't figure he was looking at Keenan Allen as a keeper. So I offered him a 2 and Darnell Mooney for Keenan Allen and a 5, Dan.
I texted you at the time, thought it was highway robbery. I thought you did a great job on that trade. I think Horvath could have got more. But Keenan Allen is hurt, so I can see why he maybe thought he couldn't. Or at least got a little more out of you, maybe an extra draft pick, maybe. I am shocked. I was more shocked that you went all in. I thought after seeing the other trades, seeing Taylor's team, looking at Terry's team, looking at Steve's team, you may have thought, this ain't the year to win. This ain't the year to go in and kind of cashed out. That's what I was expecting. I was waiting for the day you just put your guys on the trade block.
So I'll be honest. I'm not even 100% not cashed out yet. I'm fully preparing for the worst, and I figure I can recoup a 2 pretty easily. Maybe not necessarily for Keenan Allen. I figure I can recoup a 2 pretty easily. And so I'm still not completely sold. And I'm not going to be bad enough to get the first pick of the draft. So I can at least try to win my money back when the year is over. So I'm not going to like completely decimate my team, but all in all, I don't know where I stand right now. I will say when we're about to talk about it, the last 3 teams that I think are in the playoffs all showed some problems last week, and it gave me a little bit of confidence that I could be one of those teams to sneak in. And once you're in the playoffs, I really don't care at that point. Everybody is beatable, as Taylor showed last week. And I'm just going to jump into my week 4 takeaways, and that is that B might actually win a game this year because we don't know what's going to happen. It won't be on the back of his running backs, but it was never going to be on the back of his running backs. But, and we're going to talk about this later, it could be this week, but if Brian's 3 wide receivers pop in the right week and he gets a good week out of his quarterback, we were joking that it was 0-14 pretty easily. I don't think it's that easily. I know Taylor was sweating his ass off last week. It would have been crazy. We talked about it. It would have been crazy if Brian beat Taylor. But my biggest takeaway is that any team can win a game in any week. So Brian dropped 90 last week, which was big for his team. Taylor only dropped 90, which is why he changed the team name to Contender or Pretender. Any game, any week can go any way, even for these bad teams.
Absolutely. And that's what the playoffs are a lottery ticket. Any team can get in there and win. Heck, Mendez,
Mendez got to a championship or a semi-quarter, didn't he? Yeah.
So anything can happen once you get in. It's just got to get there.
And my second point that I'll just add to that is that no team is bulletproof. Taylor can easily be beaten, and it's weird. And part of it was relying on Matt Stafford. And so I think we're going to see a change in that now with Lamar Jackson. But even still, Taylor's team can be beaten. He's still not strong at running back because Kareem Hunt is very hit or miss. Hopefully he gets DeAndre Swift back, but he's going to get it out of his wide receivers. We don't know if he's going to get it out of his quarterback. Now we don't know if he's going to get it out of his tight end and running back any week. And sometimes I'll just throw my final takeaway in here, Dan, and then you can throw some takeaways. Sometimes it doesn't matter if your team can be beaten or not, because sometimes you forget to start a fucking tight end or whatever you were doing and sign 3 defenses, Phil, and just give wins away. Don't quite know what was going on there. I probably would have won if he had started a tight end, but there were probably tight ends out there that could have beat me. Very weird situation. Phil, if you ever watch the show, please drop into one of the league chats just what the hell you were doing. And then actually I had one more takeaway, Dan, and it's about you. And that's that your team isn't dead yet as long as Cincinnati and Tampa Bay show up. Big high score last week. So you had to have been very happy with that.
Yeah, I was happy, but it's 1 week. I'm not getting too excited about it. Tom Brady needs to show me that he can do this consistently still amid getting divorced. I will say I'm going to be interested if he gets divorced. Does he come back and play again next year? Because I think he was retiring to be home with his family, but now if his family is going to have
no family,
doesn't have a family, or they live in Brazil or whatever is going to happen. Does he keep playing then? Because if he keeps playing, that adds value to my Mike Evans trade. So.
That's true. Well, yeah, the Mike Evans thing becomes infinitely more valuable if Tom Brady's there next year, though we need Tom Brady to continue looking like Tom Brady. And we've always joked that Father Time is undefeated except Tom Brady, but I feel like there might be some warts this year. And so it's going to be real interesting, though. I'm not worried about you this week at all with the Buccaneers taking on Atlanta.
We'll see. Is it just the slow offensive start that a lot of teams are going through?
A lot of teams, yeah.
Or is it Father Time, or is it the divorce? Is he going to play better as it goes on? We'll see, but here's the fingers are crossed. I'm sure everybody's.
Yeah, and he didn't have Chris Godwin, so I mean, there's a lot going in there. What did you have any notes for takeaways, Dan?
I was impressed by I'll be honest. I was hoping Brian got that one over Taylor.
Oh, I know you were.
Brian, we were going to do an emergency podcast if you won, just to talk for a few minutes about your big win, because I wanted it to happen.
I didn't want to spoil the surprise, but yes, we had it all scheduled to go live on Tuesday night to bust Taylor's balls. So.
Yes, it was going to be glorious. I was very excited at the potential. I needed Cooper Kupp to do either enough to win me another league, or do so low that Brian got that win, and I got neither of those. So
stuck right in the middle.
I saw Taylor took a victory lap this week on his Cooper Kupp call, and absolutely deserves that. He's been on Cooper Kupp from the beginning.
Yep.
Absolutely. You called it from the start. We all made fun of you when we drafted him in the second round one year, and
we were in my living room in Jackson right after I had moved in, and he said Cooper Kupp, and more than half the league said who. They had no fucking idea who this guy was.
I will say I knew who he was, and he was great in college, Eastern Washington University. But I was shocked he went that early, and you were always right, Taylor. So good job on that. Take your victory lap, enjoy it. What other ones? Yeah, I had some good chuckles at what Phil was doing on Sunday. Went through his defenses, cutting tight ends. Maybe some people said he might not be a playoff team. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
blowing games. You can't be blowing games like that. He should have won last week. He should be sitting at 4-0. Ryan should be at 1-3 without Keenan Allen. Because I think if you lost last week, you don't do that trade.
I was never buying 100%. That win is why I bought Keenan Allen. I'm like, well, shit. I guess I'm still in this thing. So,
congrats to Darren getting that first win. Another takeaway. It was a lot of it went as other than that went. Greg first win. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I think Kenny's team, showed that maybe they're not going to be as good as we thought at one point because his point totals keep going down. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Those are my takeaways.
I was going to say, let's get into that with the playoff hunt. So we're going to go just slot by slot. I still have Taylor in my number one slot. I think it's still his championship to lose, but I don't know that it's as perfect as we once believed it was. Obviously, with the slow start, but the running backs worry me. The bench depth worries me a little bit, though he does have a ton of running back bench depth, but no wide receiver bench depth. So he is focused on Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and CeeDee Lamb. However, wide receiver is one of the easiest warts to cover up in this league. I like Taylor's team a lot. One thing we haven't seen from really any team, even like the big weeks that you've put up and Taylor put up, we haven't seen everybody's entire team pop in an entire week. So being 2-2 where your team is failing, you don't want to be 2-2 when your team is that good, but I think he's going to be all right. So I have Taylor as my number one.
I agree. Taylor's my number one for a couple of weeks now, I think, and adding Lamar Jackson just puts him up, even separates him further from the pack. Because with Lamar Jackson putting up the numbers he's been putting up, if that continues, Taylor's going to easily walk in with that number one seed and a nice little bye.
All right. Who do you have it to?
2, I have Terry. Okay. It seems like I wasn't expecting much out of Herbert last week, and he's still even being hurt, put up a bunch of points. So, yeah, if Terry's running backs get going the way they did last week, he looks great. He'll be in great shape, and he'll be the closest he's been to getting to that championship as well. So Terry's never even been in the championship, correct?
Probably not. It's a very Terry thing to do, to be in a league 16 years and not find a championship. So. But no, I like Terry too. Terry is actually my number 2 as well. I put that he can win with his players not all performing. He's going to win big. Excuse me. He's going to win big when all of his players hit at the same time, because all of his players have shown at different times they can hit. He just needs them all to hit at the same time. And honestly, if they're saving it for the playoffs when he's already 4-0, kudos to Terry. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, absolutely. He still has Schultz, who hasn't really gotten much out of because of the injury.
Yeah.
On his bench, so his team is really good.
Yeah, he's going to get Schultz back at the same time when Dak Prescott comes back, which they're looking at week 6. I know Dak Prescott doesn't help Terry, but what I'm getting at is Schultz should improve in the following weeks, because Schultz is going to start getting recovered from that injury at the same time that Dak Prescott is recovering from his injury, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So I will say, though, that everybody keeps bringing up stop changing your team names, and all these guys keep doing it. So at the end of the season, if something bad happens to you guys, it's all because you changed your team names. Taylor.
And Terry was one I thought would never change his team name. He was the Okie Dokes for so long, and
he did it last year. He did it with
Henry, don't hurt me.
Hurt him. And then what happened to Henry? He got hurt.
Well, I think he did it after. I think it was the joke. I think it was.
No, I think he changed it first to Henry, don't hurt him after.
And then he changed it. Yep. Okay. So so don't get hurt was after he got hurt already. Yep. Regardless, I have Stevie at 3. Still an excellent roster, but starters are starting to worry me a little bit. I was way more on his starters apparently than they were on themselves. Marquise Brown has kind of disappointed to this point, and this is before DeAndre Hopkins comes back into the picture. Curtis Samuel is his number 3 starting wide receiver right now because DJ Moore has done absolutely nothing. And so it's been a weird week and season, and he still has Michael Pittman. So I just noticed that. So he's still not bad. Amon-Ra St. Brown playing hurt. We're waiting on the Breece Hall pop, but I do like Breece Hall a lot. I like everything about his team still, and he definitely still has the best depth by my opinion, but I don't know that his starters are ready to come out here and beat down starters like Terry and Taylor.
So I think Michael Pittman's actually more disappointing than Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown at least he's getting double digits every game, where Pittman's got 2 games with left fewer than 10 points. So I I like Steve's team, but it's just like you said, it's a lot of questionable things. I don't trust Breece Hall. Fournette's not getting touchdowns.
It kind of goes back to the joke you made in week 1 that it's going to come down to Steve to start the right players. So.
And Steve has texted out at one point, like, "Am I starting the right guys?" Steve, you're 2-2. Honestly, you've had better guys on your bench. I've been keeping track. You are 2-2 at starting the right guys.
Receipts.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. If he's going to ask questions, I'm going to give him answers.
Who's your number 3?
Steve's my number 3 as well.
Oh, okay.
Again, while I'm down on him, I still think he's number 3. He does have a solid team. I'm not questioning that. I do think he's going to have a terrible week this week, though. We'll get into that later.
Who do you have at 4?
At 4, I have Kenny.
Okay.
Kenny's
my 5. I'll let you talk, and then I'll jump in. So
okay. Kenny, he has obviously like the combination of Burrow and Chase. His running backs, Barkley and Robinson, looks very solid. Tonyan at tight end's a question of mark. Devontae Smith's had some good games, better than what I expected, but he's not someone I would necessarily be counting on. Will Geno Smith keep it going with Seattle and keep Metcalf, worthy? We'll see. He has good players. It's just I don't think he's at quite the same level as other guys, and he traded away a lot of depth. To get some of those guys. I think we talked about last week with his trades, but still solidly in there at 4. But I would not be surprised. We're to the point now on my list where if something happened and the team started dropping out of the playoffs, this is where the cutoff. This is where the starts for me. My first question mark is him.
Yeah, and I'm the exact same way. 4, 5, 6 are my question marks. Kenny might be the only person in the league who's relying on DBs as IDP, and they've popped very well so far this season, but DBs are also the ones who can get completely shut out of a game, so that worries me a little bit for him. But, I mean, it's working, so why not? Depth is what worries me for Kenny as well, which is why he falls down to 5 for me. I don't know how well DK Metcalf is going to play for the entire season, but I love what his running backs are doing. I will take the absolute L on James Robinson. I had no problem shitting on Achilles injuries when it was Cam Akers, and I lumped James Robinson in there, and James Robinson has made me look dumb. I love what James Robinson is doing this season. I don't mind the tight end thing because I'm obviously a proponent of streaming tight ends if you can't get one of the elite ones. He has Tonyan and Irv Smith. It's just going to be picking the right matchups every week. If those are the 2 he's going to run with. He's doing a really good job managing his team, but like I said, I just think at some point injuries, bye weeks, the lack of depth is going to hurt Kenny. You have Kenny at 4. I have him at 5. I have Motts at 4. I love everything Motts has done with his team. Obviously, any team with Josh Allen is going to be in great contention. I don't know how much I trust Aaron Jones and Miles Sanders at this point. It just seems like I don't know what Green Bay is doing with their offense. I was a big Aaron Jones guy. I just don't know what they're doing with their offense. As long as Russ keeps struggling, Courtland Sutton is never going to pop. Darren Waller's been kind of mediocre. So Rob has rosters of guys who could pop in any given week. But the reason I have him down at 4 and kind of in danger is they could also dud pretty damn easily any given week.
So yeah, I have Rob at 5.
Okay, so we're pretty much the same at this point. So.
Yes. I agree. I like Rob's starters. I think he has some question marks on his depth. And obviously, can Jacksonville keep it going, or is that just a fluke for Christian Kirk? I think eventually Denver will get it figured out, and Sutton will be valuable. I think the biggest thing is what will determine Motts. I think will be what does he get out of Mike Williams, and if him and Miles Sanders can Miles Sanders keep it going, and what will get out of Mike Williams will determine Motts this season. So I'm nervous for him about those 2 guys specifically. And that's why I have them down that bottom tier of questionable teams.
And both of those guys are an injury away, and it just feels like we know it every year. They tend to do something, especially Mike Williams. Mike Williams lays out for passes like you love the way Mike Williams plays football, but it sets him up for injury. And when you look at Rob's bench is every other team in the league's handcuffs: Jerick McKinnon, J.D. McKissick, Alexander Madison. He's running a backup tight end right now. So you have a bench that's not going to get you through anything. In all honesty, I might end up moving Kenny ahead of him, just because the bench is really bad for Rob. Rob's starters are what's going to carry him, and it's why I also have him in the danger zone. So, but you have it 6. I think this is where we'll disagree.
I have you. You are my number 6 team. I think the Keenan Allen thing really kind of helps put you into that spot. Obviously still nervous about your team because they really haven't performed to the level that we expected. Jonathan Taylor, I think would be a complete disappointment at this point for you. Yeah. Mahomes has had some success. Kelsey's had some success, but I think we expected more from both of them. And then the rest of your receivers are still highly disappointing at this point. So, and like I said, you were Phil setting a proper lineup away from being 1 and 3, but I still have you in there because I think you still have the talent, and I still believe in that they'll get it right. Just slow starts.
I still don't have myself in because of the wide receiver issue. I'm actually very happy with Travis Kelce, 10 plus points every week. You just don't really, or every week but one is what I'm trying to say. 15 every week except for one. So you just don't get that out of tight end much. Mahomes, I mean, he's hitting his 20s. He's not quite as high as I need him to be to keep winning games with these wide receivers, man. Deontay Johnson, now Tyler Lockett, and then hopefully Keenan Allen. I have to start fucking Elijah Moore this week. So it's all bad at wide receiver, and that's why I just don't have myself in yet. But I have 2 things going for me is I have depth at running back. So when Jonathan Taylor does get hurt, and hopefully he's back by week 6, and it sounds like TJ Watt's going to be back by week 6, and I'm undefeated with TJ. Or no, I'm not. I'm 0-1 with TJ Watt because Taylor sucks. Never mind. I forgot about that. But I have put up a lot of points with TJ Watt on my roster. So anyway, I need TJ Watt back. The Steelers. Did you see the stat this week that the Steelers have never won a game that TJ Watt has missed? So that was pretty interesting.
I did not see that.
Yeah, so never 0-7 whenever TJ Watt has missed a game. So my final team is still Phil, but I just have in my notes that bad decisions scare me. It's his spot if he wants it, but now I'm questioning, do you want it, Phil? What the hell, man? The whole league is rooting for you to make Dan look like a fucking moron, and you're out here not starting a tight end against one of the worst teams wide receiver wise in the entire league. We're going to get into his matchup this week. I think he's in trouble a little bit this week as well, but all in all, very bad decision last week, but I love his starters. I love his elite quarterback. And so I'm still giving Phil the final spot. We kind of touched on this. I have 3 teams, Mott's, Kenny, and Phil, and you have 3 teams, Mott's, Kenny, and myself, who could easily miss the playoffs. And I truly believe that all of the other teams, being for me, you, Xavier, and myself, could easily slide into those 3 spots. Those would be the teams I still give a fighting chance. I'm going to be honest. I don't think the 1-win teams, with the exception of maybe Darren, I don't think the 1-win teams have any hope for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree completely on that. I think the one-win teams, you guys are done. Do a better job drafting next year.
I would feel good for Darren if it wasn't for Russell Wilson. Just such a bad call this season. And I don't mean by Darren, I mean by fantasy at large. I thought he was going to be great, and my God, he needs to get it together, but Darren can't wait for him to get it together, and it's probably going to put a nail in him this week.
Yeah, I mean, he already put all those guys on the trade block at midnight the other night with my phone going off constantly on trying to sleep because he was mad at Russell Wilson. But so I think Darren probably realized it's not happening this year.
Do not disturb on. All right, let's get into this week, Dan. I tried to order the games in order of importance. And so the first game for me that just doesn't matter is Darren versus Brian. It's the least consequential game of the week. Darren with 1 win, Brian with 0 wins. But Russ is out here trying to help B get that first win. I think it was a big week from Mike Boone for Brian. It kind of ruined the running back over-under game because we've been so accurate. I'm going to say it's 11.5 points out of Brian's running backs this week, but it kind of took the fun out of the game. But I think Brian gets the win. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the difference here. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has a nice matchup against Carolina, who has not done very well this season. And Russ starting off bad has put Darren in a hole that I don't think he's going to be able to recover from. I think Darren and Brian have the same amount of wins after this week.
So I think I also have Brian winning, but I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo will be the difference. I don't expect much out of Jimmy. I think the difference will be Justin Jefferson and Robert Woods and good matchups for them. I
Yeah, I
think his
love Robert
receivers.
Woods this week.
I think those two are going to put up some points. I wish Brian had some of the Mark Ingram because I don't trust him at all in that Saints offense. And Seattle's defense, I don't know. I guess anything's possible with Mark Ingram against that defense,
I
but
was going to say Seattle's defense gives up a ton to the
they
running
do.
back. So,
But
but
I
is it
just
going to
don't
be all
know.
Alvin Kamara? So,
Because that's my worry for Ingram. But it's Brian's running back, so I did see an interesting stat about Pickens and how the past few weeks how much his stats and stuff have gone up and his routes run have gone up. So he could have a big week too. So maybe, like I said, I think this is the week for Brian. I think he gets that win.
see, what's interesting is Brian, I'm looking over his team again right now. Brian's bench should be very interesting to some of these teams in playoff races because Zay Jones is a startable wide receiver. Michael Gallup scored a touchdown in his first game back, and Devin Duvernay is about to be the wide receiver 1 for Baltimore this week. They're probably going to get beat by Cincinnati because they don't have Rashad Bateman, but it could be a very big game for Devin Duvernay. I think there are trades out there that Brian can still make and keep building this thing for next year because there are wide receiver needy teams in the league, myself included, and there are going to need to be some trades done. It's just, do you feel like these are the 3 guys you need to start where Brian might be able to get even more draft picks out of this? So it's going to be interesting, but I do love Robert Woods this week. But like I said, I said Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think it's just the poor play out of Darren's quarterback that I think has already shot him in the foot. So.
Oh, absolutely agree with that.
Next up, I have Taylor versus Horvath. 2 weeks ago, this might have been fun. They just did a trade. I'm not in on it. I'm obviously picking Taylor here. I'll give my analysis later, Dan, but you can talk about the game first.
Taylor as well. I think he's going to run away with this one. And I think Horvath's probably just fine with that. Get those draft picks down low. Battle for that. Because I think he still has enough of a roster that he can, once he gets into those final 4 for that number 1 overall pick, with Connor and Harris, he's in good shape.
Yeah, that's what's interesting is the number 1s Horvath picked up and managed to hold on to his own. He could play for the number 1 pick, but then still have Horvath could end up with I don't remember exactly who he has. Horvath could end up with 3 of the first 5 picks of this draft. So we could be talking about an insane team next year.
Well, yeah, he has Darren's 1, my 1, his 1, and Taylor's 1.
Yeah, so I guess maybe not. I mean,
he could end up with the top 4 easily.
Yeah, so he could 2 of the top 4 pretty easily. And then the other thing with this matchup is Taylor's guys all have great matchups. Lamar Jackson, as long as he doesn't completely fold with no Rashad Bateman, Lamar Jackson should have a huge week. Melvin Gordon had a great week for Taylor. The Chargers give up a ton to the running back. You just don't know if it'll be Chubb or Hunt. Cooper Kupp is going to absolutely torch Trevon Diggs. Devontae Adams is going to have a great game against Kansas City. And then CeeDee Lamb on the other side, what's the corner's name in Ramsey? Ramsey gives up a perfect passer rating to this players this season. And it doesn't matter if Cooper Rush throws interceptions, CeeDee Lamb doesn't get penalized for the interceptions. And even better, maybe CeeDee Lamb will make the tackle on the interception. And then Taylor gets points for that as well. So I think Taylor's matchups put him in a spot where he's going to run away with this pretty badly. But again, that's not unexpected. Horvath is building for next year. So.
I agree. Taylor's going to win. He's going to run away with it. I don't think Lamar Jackson has a big game this week. I think he has fewer than 20 points this week.
Wow. Next up, I have you versus Greg. Greg just hasn't had it this season. And more importantly, Tampa Bay and Cincinnati both have excellent offensive matchups this week. The only thing you got to hope is that it's not one of those games where Tampa Bay gets up quick with Leonard Fournette and then just runs the rest of the game away. I don't think it'll happen. Atlanta's played better than we've expected. Outside of Debo, I don't like any of Greg's matches. So I think you make it 3 in a row. I have you winning this game.
I agree. I think I win as well. Greg has some players. I mean, he has some solid players that, Debo, you would expect more out of Aaron Rodgers. I liked his team more at the beginning of the year.
I wouldn't expect more out of Aaron Rodgers.
I expected more out of Aaron Rodgers. He's still Aaron Rodgers, but it's not happening this year. Again, going against the Giants, maybe he has a good game. I just expect, I don't know. I just guys I don't trust. Obviously you can't trust Jacobs. You don't trust Schuster. You can't trust Gage. So unless somebody just comes out and has a monster game for him, I think I should win this one as well.
I did have a note that I forgot to mention on the last game is that I love that Darnell Mooney and the Bears are so bad that even when I trade him to Steve Horvath's team, he's not good enough to start for Steve Horvath's team. That's one of my personal favorites. Is fuck the Bears.
Darnell Mooney hurts.
Yeah, the whole season hurts. Next up, I have me versus JR. I honestly just don't think JR has a very good team this season. I'm not saying he can't beat me. He absolutely can beat me. But when it comes to consequences, this game with a 2-win team versus a 1-win team, it just really doesn't matter. But the dud from Judy definitely makes me feel better about my options. Judy not looking like a very good football player, let alone fantasy football player. Keenan Allen drags me down a bit. But to be honest, I should have never expected to have Keenan Allen in this matchup. I do love the Wilson combo this week for him, Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson, but I'm also starting Elijah Moore. So hopefully I can get in on that a little bit. I think I win, but I think it's fewer than 5 points.
I think you win probably by at least 15. I'm thinking a shootout Monday night for Vegas and the Chiefs.
That I need that very badly, and
I think
Vegas
that
is not good
happens.
at stopping the tight end. So.
I think Miami's defense is gonna do pretty well against the Jets. I don't have much faith in Zach Wilson. I think Dobbins could have a bad game.
I'm starting to think
Tyreek Hill being questionable. That if he's not 100%, you don't know what you know. Yeah. Who's Miami's quarterback this week?
Teddy Bridgewater.
Bridgewater. Yeah, they looked good last week, but it's one thing. Can you count on that every week? So we'll see.
Yeah, and the quote from Brian McDaniel, Mike McDaniel was that he hopes Tyreek Hill can play, which is never what you want to hear your coach say. I will say I'm starting to wonder if Keenan Allen isn't like a bad omen, because I have Keenan Allen on my roster now, and I have Jonathan Taylor with the O, Keenan Allen with the O. I already had TJ Watt and Cordero Patterson on the IR, so I'm starting to take over the IR Savages or whatever we decided to call Horvath's team name, but it was not very good. Now we have the 3 matchups that are good and matter. Kenny versus Rob, 3-win versus 2-win, and Rob's 2 losses are just because he has faced a tough schedule to this point. Cortland Sutton and the IDP did as they were supposed to for Rob on Thursday. QBs, I think, kind of cancel each other out, and in every other matchup, I like Kenny, especially Saquon Barkley and James Robinson. I have Kenny beating Rob in the tough schedule, getting Rob again.
I love the James Robinson matchup. I don't know about Barkley against that Green Bay defense. We'll see, unless he catches a lot of passes.
Well, we saw not Khalil Herbert, but David Montgomery go for like a Bill 22 on Green Bay in week 3. So
yeah, it's possible. I don't know. We'll see. I don't like that matchup for him. We'll see. Hopefully, for Kenny's sake, I'm wrong. I agree. I think Kenny gets the win. I do like Rob's team. I think this will probably be the closest game of the week. This is the game I think you'll see someone within 5 points. Come down to that Sunday night game, really, for Kenny. Does Burrow and Chase have a good game against Baltimore?
And then second most important game of the week, Xavier. Well, who did you have winning? I'm sorry, I think you said it.
But... I said Kenny.
Okay, my apologies. Yep. Second most important game, and probably one with enormous playoff implications, Xavier versus Phil, 2 wins versus 3 wins. Phil seems to be starting a tight end this week, but he looked like he was all through Saturday last week as well. So we'll see how he looks tomorrow morning. But outside of Goddard, all of the matchups do favor Phil. I think Jalen Hurts has a great matchup. Nick Chubb has an excellent matchup. Diggs and Cooper both have good matchups. So I think they're going to carry Phil to another win. Phil hits 4 wins. Xavier hits 2 and 3 and falls even further into limbo.
I disagree. I think Xavier gets this win. Kirk Cousins going against Chicago. ETN maybe get some points against Houston. I don't trust. The Browns looked bad last week, and I don't know if is that what you're gonna get more of that from Cooper as they play against better teams?
Well, I was gonna say they looked bad and it hurt Cooper, but it certainly didn't hurt Nick Chubb with 19 fantasy points. So.
Yeah. Is this a Hunt week? Is it gonna be a Chubb week? It's just one of those.
Well, and that's always the big worry with the Browns, and that's what I was bringing up with Taylor's team. As well.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it's the same thing. Is it going to be Hunt or Chubb? I think if Hines had what we would have expected with no Jonathan Taylor, I would feel more confident about Phil winning this game. So I'm going to go with Xavier. I think getting 24 points out of your defense, that's big.
Yeah, it's quite enormous.
That's teams that have those IDPs and the defenses blow up typically do pretty well. So I think I'm going to go with Xavier to win this game.
And then I wonder, Baltimore's defense doesn't feel like the right play this week either. And I don't know when Baltimore's defense was the right play. Like they've had decent weeks here and there, but like 9 fantasy points when they let 42 to Miami, 9 fantasy points letting 23 to Buffalo. I just don't know. This could be another Miami game without the turnovers. You just hope that the Bengals are going to keep allowing sacks, I guess, is the big thing. So, all right. Final game has to be the game of the week. I don't know, because I'm not going to go back and look, if we've ever had 2 4-0 teams, the last 2 4-0 teams face each other in week 5. Pretty interesting. So it's clearly the game of the week. Position for position, I think this game is about as even as you can get. I think Herbert being at 100% is a better matchup than Kyler Murray, and you just don't know if you can trust Kyler Murray. It's Stevie versus Terry, by the way, if you guys haven't put that together. I'm going to take Terry. I will say if Amon-Ra St. Brown plays this game, he could make me look dumb here, but I'm going to take Terry based on quarterback matchup because I like these teams equally in every other aspect of the game.
Stevie, this is not a dig on you. You still have a good team, but I think Terry walks away with this win. I think Kyler Murray and Brown have a rough matchup with Philadelphia's defense. Philadelphia's defense has been playing outstanding. I have zero trust for him. I think I've said that throughout the year. Other guys on his team could have big games. I still think Terry's team is, if Waddle plays and Hill's out, Waddle could have a monster game. Terry's running backs are playing great. Herbert could have a big game against Cleveland. Williams starting with Taylor's running back got Swift out. I think Terry walks away with this.
I love Tyler Conklin this week too. The Miami gives up a ton of points to the tight end, and I know you're not in on the Jets this week. I'm very in on the Jets this week. So, like I said, I like all of Terry's matchups, and I just don't think Stevie's guys playing very mediocre right now, including Kyler Murray, and you brought it up. Philadelphia is the problem. Darius Slay is the problem. So I just don't know that Stevie's going to be able to get it going this week. So,
but you're taking Stevie to win or no?
No, I took Terry to win.
Terry, okay.
Yeah. We only disagree on Xavier and Phil, which I think it's Phil. You think it's Xavier. I think we agreed on every other matchup. So yeah, that's it. I didn't mention I went 4-3 last week, Dan. I'm 19-9 on the season.
5-2, 16-12.
Okay, so very, very close on the pick'em there. After a great 6-1 week 4 for me, or week 3 for me, I choked a little bit last week, and one of them I flip-flopped that I was going to pick Kenny and then chose not to pick Kenny and then went back to picking Kenny and then he loses. So I definitely should have stuck with my gut there. So that's the show, guys. We do need to get guests. So if you guys want to DM me and tell me you want to be on the show, Darren, I know we talked at one point. So if you guys are watching and you want to be on the show, send me I said DM, like we're Twitter friends and not actual friends in real life. Send me a text and we'll go ahead and get you guys on the show. Dan, do you have any parting words for our friends?
Ryan prefers if you guys call him. Don't just text him. He likes to talk on his phone.
Fucking call me ever.
Please call him.
If I could get that service turned off, I would get that service turned off. Text me early and often. Dan, say something to the people.
Love you guys. Have a good weeks. All of you except for who I'm playing every week. Just you guys can have bad weeks. Sorry, Greg.
Bye, guys. Have a good Saturday.
Phil, start a lineup.